I am Poopwitch X, and I am joined today with two amazing representatives from the Humane Society of the United States, Jessica and Amanda. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
I'm good.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us and sharing your stories. So, Jessica, if I could start with you, what is your official title? What got you started with the Humane Society, and what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are she, her, and my title is I'm the Senior Director of the Animal Rescue Team for the Humane Society of the United States. And I came here, I've been here almost 9 years now.
Wow.
And before that, I spent 10 years at a county shelter in Florida, where I started
Wow.
as a kennel technician. And I worked my way up to become an animal control officer and an animal cruelty investigator. I did a very large case with over 700 cats as an
Whoa.
investigator. And I called in the HSUS for help as an officer. So it was
Wow.
a great experience. And I just fell in love with the national org and the national side and being able to help animals and people from a national platform. So I here I am, almost 19 years in the animal welfare field.
That is incredible. So was the first time you reached out to Humane Society when the 700 cats, when that was do you call them cases? Like what is the terminology for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was a case. It
Okay.
was a criminal case, so it was and it was well beyond our capacity. We thought we were going to have about 400,
Wow.
and it was that was well beyond our capacity. So
Wow.
we phoned a friend and
Yeah.
got some help.
That's incredible. So Amanda, how did you get started with the Humane Society, and what are your pronouns?
Hi, my pronouns are she, her, and I am the Vice President of Access to Care at HSUS, which means that I am working on issues around creating equity in access to pet resources for people in underserved areas and experiencing poverty. And I have been with the organization for over 16 years now.
Wow.
It's been that long. I started in 2008 as the North Carolina State Director. So working on North Carolina specific issues. I was a lobbyist in the state for a few years, working on animal welfare bills and policy, and then moved into the work nationally.
That is, so you both have been in this space for a very large and long time, especially with a very emotional job, I would say. I feel like it can be taxing, and you see a lot of triumphs and some things that maybe stick with you. Do you have a story, and either one of you can feel free to go first, that is your most memorable case or most memorable experience that made you feel even more driven to continue on a really incredible journey you both have been on?
Go ahead, Jess.
I put myself on mute. I wasn't sure if there was an echo.
No, you're okay.
Like I think the easy answer is every deployment, every case, every situation that I go on, I get inspired by something that I see, right? So that's the easy answer, and that's what keeps me going. And truly uh, the people and the outcomes. We hear people say in the animal field that I work with animals because I don't like people, and that is just so far from the truth uh, that you work in this field because you get to help both, and you get to be there and support both sides, the animals and the people. And in my position, I can see we do see a lot of trauma. We do see a lot of triumph as well, and it's we work on both cruelty cases. We work on we do disaster work. We partner with Amanda and her team a lot, specifically for disasters. So it's really great when we're able to come together and help support communities after disaster hits. So um, I learned something from every case. I think the one that sticks with me the most is we responded to the Paradise fires in
Oh,
California.
wow.
That was a truly that's my cat's tail. Uh,
Hello. Guest appearance.
yeah. Uh, that experience has really it changed me after seeing that and meeting the people there, and I think that's my most memorable
It's incredible.
experience.
I think what's really beautiful about your story is that we do often think when you work with animals that it really is just, oh, I get to work with only animals exclusively, but there's such a symbiotic relationship between animals and human beings, and you have to kind of cater in some ways to both, so that you're finding the people who are wronging animals and righting that wrong, and then also connecting the animals with people who are going to do a great job and show compassion to those animals. So I think that's amazing. And also, really, if I could say this, really badass that you see. I didn't even think of all the animals that are affected by disasters and natural catastrophes. You think of wild animals, and but there's also, in general, I mean, yes, you guys help at wild animals, but there's also the domesticated animals who are lost from their families and need to be reconnected. So that's incredible. Amanda, what's your resonating story?
It's hard to pick just one. I feel that I'm extremely lucky that I have gotten to meet probably tens of thousands of people at this point.
Wow.
With our work, it's the opposite of what a lot of people expect. People say, like, I don't know how you do that. It must be so hard.
Yeah.
Really, what I see is the bond between people and their pets, and I see the best in that. Like,
Oh.
we are of service to people who often are overlooked or even looked down upon by the system. And we get to treat people with dignity and respect and really honor the love they have for their pets. And to see that no matter where you live, what your socioeconomic status, what your background is, like what pets mean to people. I'm sure most everybody on here has a
Yes.
pet, know what they bring to your life. And so, in the work that I get to do, we're making sure that people and pets stay together. And so seeing just that immense love and connection that people have, and that I get to really keep that strong bond and sort of do something to ensure the happiness and kind of the health and welfare of the person and the pet. I still wake up in the morning and can't believe that I get to do it,
Oh.
that job. Um, and, you know, I wasn't sure, I couldn't think of a story and kind of like what would be the one thing that I would share, but something did come to mind as Jess was talking. And it was a situation from last year. We had a woman in Philadelphia that we had known for over a decade, had been providing services for her and her family. And she had become an extension of our team and helping us with community cats. So she was helping to trap the cats so they could be spayed and neutered and vaccinated and return them to the community. And she passed away last year.
Oh, I'm
And
so sorry.
the Philadelphia team went to the viewing, and in the obituary, they had pets for life. She had made sure that her family knew how important the program was in her life, and that she got to be a part of it and give back to her community. And so it's moments like that that you realize just how much animals mean to people.
Oh, that you're gonna make me cry. That's so beautiful. I think pets resonate so deeply. We talked about this when we started the campaign. Is that when we in the Poop Coven, my community's name, I'm sure Amanda relayed that's the name, but we do a lot of charity. We do one pretty much every other month for the whole year, and animals always hit that sweet spot for us because they are, and we've talked about animals and children in particular because we are their advocates. They cannot advocate for themselves. They don't have a voice. We are their voice. So I think what you do and provide for the people, but also for the pets, are incredibly powerful and important work that both of you are doing. And I'd like to elaborate on a little bit more of what you both specifically do within the Humane Society. So Jessica, if you want to take it away.
Sure. So my job, I'm again, I'm the senior director of the animal rescue team. So, and we have a few different branches. We have an animal crimes branch, and they work daily on connecting with law enforcement, animal control to help guide them on how to handle a case or a complaint. And we always start with an educational approach and teach law enforcement, animal control that just provide that education. And are there resources within your community? Can you get resources within your community, right? And so we're guiding them on, just because somebody doesn't, has their dog on a chain or doesn't have a dog house doesn't mean that they're doing it intentionally. It doesn't mean that there's a crime occurring. They just might need a little bit of education, a little bit of help, a little bit of support. of access. So, so we guide them through that, and then we're also there when there are some situations that rise to the level of a crime, right? So we're there to help guide law enforcement, guide animal control on what is that line, and when you get to that line, how do you proceed with an animal case? Because animal cases there's a lot of similarities to a typical criminal case within law enforcement, but there's a lot of differences, especially when you're talking about having to seize an animal and what that looks like, and providing the care for the animal after the seizure. So that's kind of the crimes team in a nutshell. Of course, we also support large-scale responses. So there is no specific number for that. It's just if a criminal case where there's, it's often dozens to hundreds of animals, and that just outstrips the need, or it outstrips the resources that the community has. Right. So our team will come in and we will provide everything from start to finish. We will support the help them write their, the search warrant, and we help with the removal, the documentation, the evidence collection on the property. We'll do all of the vetting for the animals with veterinary exams, and all of that is continuing to collect the evidence for the case. We'll house the animals until there's a disposition, either through a surrender or a court process, and then we'll place the animals with our placement partners, and we provide further funding to our partners to make sure that those animals are get everything that they need, and that we're not putting a burden on our partners there. So we see the case, from start to finish. We have a disaster branch, so any type of disaster that occurs. When we think disaster, we think something big like wildfires or earthquakes or tornadoes, hurricanes. But this could also be we provide support if there's a just like sometimes it's just like a freeze and pipes burst, for instance. This is something that happens pretty frequently in shelters where the pipes burst. So we'll offer some funding to help, repair that for them. So it doesn't have to be a big, front page disaster. Right. If there is something that has occurred that has affected a shelter and their ability to care for the animals and their care, we will support that. We have an operations branch, and this is where when we're having to shelter animals, transport animals, provide veterinary support, behavior support for our animals, that all lives under our operations branch. We have placement and transport. So that placement and transport kind of feeds all of the other branches. So, what do we do with these animals once we have custody of them, once they're medically sound, once they're behaviorally sound, where do we put them after that? And how do we get them there? And then we also have a volunteer branch. So about 80% of our work in our shelters is provided by volunteer support. Wow. And so we have a whole team of folks that find volunteers, schedule them, bring them in to support us when we have animals in care.
Wow.
That's in
I think what we talked about early on when we were going to partner with the Humane Society is that I think a lot of us have a concept of what we see at face value. We go to our local humane societies, we see that there are dogs for adoptions, cat for adoptions, but it is an incredibly huge operation. You are involved in legal cases from start to finish. I also wanted to ask, do you, because I remember, I think it was Amanda, did you mention lobbying at one point? Right. So there's a legality to this too, where you're involved in, you said you had mentioned teaching resources, education, the rehoming, but also like transporting. There's so many facets that go into place for this aspect of what the Humane Society does, which I don't think a lot of us would know logistically behind the scenes, all that transpires. So that is like utterly incredible. And from an outside perspective, pretty impressive and foreboding. I'm like, how do you handle all this? Is incredible. So that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Amanda, we'd love to hear more about what you do.
Yeah, so I oversee 2 programs and then work interdepartmentally with a bunch of other teams and departments on access to care issues. And so the 2 programs are Pets for Life that I mentioned earlier,
Yes.
and then rural area veterinary services. So both of these programs are focused on providing resources for underserved communities around the country. And
Wow.
so with Pets for Life, we have two flagship markets in Los Angeles and Philadelphia where our own team are they're out in the community every single day connecting people with resources for their pets, veterinary care, pet supplies, grooming, spay neuter, really anything and
Wow.
everything you need when you have a pet, making sure that areas that are historically marginalized or traditionally underserved have those resources. And then we work with local shelters across the country for them to bring Pets for Life to their community. And so it's local animal shelters, but it's also community medicine clinics. We've really increased a lot of our efforts around Native Nation
Oh,
support.
love that.
Um, and so we are in 43 states now and in every region of the country.
Wow.
Program and making sure as again, if you have a pet, you probably have noticed that costs have increased. Like veterinary care is super expensive.
Crazy expensive.
Pet food and pet supplies has gone up exponentially. And so if you're someone who's living at or below the poverty line, which is $18,000 for one person and about 30,000 for a family of four, you can imagine that when you call the vet and say, I need to get my cat neutered and it's $500, that's just out of reach.
Right.
And if the vet is, 10 miles away and you don't have a personal vehicle and there isn't public transportation, then it's physically out of reach as well. So there are a lot of barriers that exist for far too many people. And so the Pets for Life program is focused on how do we remove those barriers and start to sort of as a system change what people have access to. And then the rural area veterinary services called RAVs, they are specifically working with Native nations across the country, where they bring a vet team in to the communities and provide large clinics. So we have 3 veterinarians and 3 vet techs on staff, and then a large group of temporary staff and volunteers. And one of the really cool components of what RAVS does is that everything is done through teaching clinics. So when they're providing services, they will have dozens of veterinary students and other veterinary professionals who are learning
Wow.
how to do things with the incremental care approach and how to really focus in veterinary care for populations that need that service. So it's really training the next generation of veterinarians to have an understanding of this sort of demographic of people and pets, and how can we again sort of do more at a holistic level to change the access for people. And then kind of your question about lobbying, one of the things that we work on between a bunch of teams at HSUS, our companion animal policy team, Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association, our state affairs, is working on access to care policy. And we're really trying to get at an institutional level some of the issues. So things like pet inclusive housing. If we have an affordable housing crisis in the country everywhere. I don't know
Right.
that there's a community that hasn't been touched by that. And when you add pet inclusivity on top of that, so where pets are welcome, where there are not breed restrictions, weight restrictions, it's extremely difficult for a lot of people to be able to keep their pets and to put a roof over their head. And so we're working on policy that would increase the availability of housing that is pet friendly. And then a lot of other issues like veterinary telemedicine. We want to sort of the human healthcare space and offer telehealth services to people who are in remote or rural areas or just don't have access, like maybe they're immobile or they have fractious animals that they can't get to or from. And a lot of other things that I won't get sort of in the weeds about, but there are many, many ways that we can start to increase vet access through policy.
I think I speak for myself and the entire community. We are in awe. I think that what you do, both of you and everyone in the Humane Society's team, including the volunteers, are changing the facet of how animals are looked at in society, how we make things easier for also people who are in, like Amanda said, in rural areas, who might be disabled, who might not financially or physically be able to have the access that they need. I think there there are so many levels to this that are really important and not nearly addressed enough in society. So I am so grateful that you both are doing this work. I think I speak for everyone, or at least I hope to do. Animals need people like you who are advocating for them and fighting for the families who also need their help so that they can love their pets and take care of their pets. And so I think it's incredible. And you both have been in the industry for such a long time. From when you both started to now, what have you seen the most progress in, and what are you hoping to see in the future? And anybody could answer first if you'd like.
I'm off of mute, so I'll start on this one, Jess. I think what I've seen change the most is a shift in philosophy for companion animal welfare. We still have a long way to go and a lot to do, but just a few years ago, and definitely a decade ago, there was a very pervasive sentiment that if you can't afford a pet, you shouldn't have one. And have worked very hard to change that notion, and to help people see that a lack of financial means does not equate to a lack of love that you have for a pet, or like the unconditional love that a pet can bring to your life, the joy and the companionship. And so we want to see a world where everyone has that opportunity to experience everything that a pet can offer in your life. And so we're really starting to see a shift. There's been a real sort of paradigm shift kind of in that belief system. Again, we're not there yet, but it's sort of turned to where maybe the majority of people used to believe that if you can't afford a pet, you shouldn't have one. And now while it's still there, the majority of people, I think, are on the other side of that understanding. And so that has been just unbelievably important, to kind of contribute to that in the movement, and to kind of do our part to hopefully encourage and keep pushing in that way. And what I want to see moving forward is a deeper understanding of how issues that impact people also impact pets. And so all of the sort of societal questions that may come up, and that are kind of rooted in discrimination, that people don't think of as animal issues. They are animal issues, and housing is like the perfect example of that.
Right.
That if we want to keep pets in their homes, we have to keep people in their home. And so getting animal advocates to see themselves as housing advocates. So I think that that's sort of my big dream moving forward, is that we just continue to evolve in that way. And we sort of position ourselves to lend our voice to these bigger movements and these bigger issues that impact pets as much as they do people.
Wow, that's incredible. And I'm so glad that I agree with you that there is a philosophy shift. I feel like people are being more understanding that the love and care you get from a pet transcends where you are in the hierarchy of society that is sometimes not even a fault of your own, you know? So I think that's amazing and incredible. Jessica?
Sorry, if you see my arm, my cat is here demanding her brushing.
Can we know your cat's name? I'm dying to know.
Her name is Jovi. This one, her name is Jovi, after the elf from, or the movie Elf.
Oh, yes.
Christmas movie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful. She looks like a large cat.
She's a Maine Coon. She's a big.
She looks
a big cat.
Like leopard-like. She's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. She's sweet. She's quite demanding. So she'll probably continue to interrupt us here.
She's our third guest. It's totally fine.
Yes, yeah, she's lovely.
And the most important one.
Yes,
absolutely.
We want to see her face, her tail. We want to see her whip by, like.
Yes, she'll probably continue to do so. I'm getting glares because I stopped. So I'll echo what Amanda said. I mean, I have also noticed a complete shift in philosophy, and it bleeds into other areas too, right? I mean, now like when we talk about disasters, people are people are preparing more. They're talking about pets. They're talking about keeping pets with their families, and the people shelters are allowing pets to come with their people.
Oh, wow.
And we're still, it's not a perfect system yet. There's still a lot of growth that needs to happen with that. But like the Red Cross, for instance, is they're the major people shelter. Most of their shelters will allow pets in them. She's stepping on my keyboard now. She's going to close me out of here completely.
That's amazing.
So yeah. So, and we work with the Red Cross too, and with all, other state and federal agencies when disasters occur, and just having that shift and making people realize that you can provide a space for people, but many people are not going to leave their pets behind.
Right.
And people put themselves in harm's way because of the love that they have for their animals, and they won't leave them.
Right.
Also shifting that for people that do end up leaving, oftentimes what occurs is they won't evacuate, they won't go to a shelter because they're not allowed to bring their pets. And then something really bad happens and they have to evacuate, and their animals are now left in their home, and they're back to the old philosophy. It used to be like, oh, they must not have loved their animals. And there are still people that go around, and if they see animals outside after a disaster, they'll take them and move them somewhere. And oh, these people must not have loved their animals because they left them behind. And and it's like, well, no, if it was a life or death situation and they had no place to take their animals before that, they may not have a vehicle, they may not have been able to afford a hotel if there wasn't an evacuee center available to them to keep their animals with them. They may not have had an option, right? So we're seeing a lot of that shift, and a lot of more preparedness that includes animals with their people, and we still have a ways to go with that. But after Katrina, a lot of things shifted, and how people prepare, and how we are working to help other communities prepare, and get help. So we come in and we provide services for the people with animals, right? So there's a lot to worry about if you just lost your home, and you lost your community, and you lost your your place of work. There's a lot to worry about. So if we can come in and provide you a bag of dog food or a dog crate, and so you can go stay at a family member's house, maybe they don't have a fenced yard, but here's a dog crate,
Right.
So like if we can continue that work and make sure that people are thinking about animals with people in disasters, and making sure that there's a place for everybody to go, and resources for both animals and people. But there's been a huge shift in that, still some growth opportunities there, and I just really hope that continues to to trend in the right direction.
I think what I'm hearing from both sides is that there needs to be more human education so that we can do better for our pets, for our neighbors' pets. If a disaster strikes, we also have the education to know what to do and how to respond and how best to prepare, which I think is really important. That it seems like a big component of this is education. So my next question is sort of, obviously donations are incredibly imperative to the Humane Society, and yay for charity events and campaigns and all that. We're definitely, I know financially that is one way to help, but is there any other way? I know 80%, I think Jessica said, are volunteers. So is there any other ways that people can help that maybe you can't help financially, but maybe you can offer some other way to help?
Yeah, just education, just joining here and having Amanda and I chat with you and tell you about all about our awesome jobs, and the fact that we both wake up every morning. And I love that you said that, Amanda.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, after 19 years in this field, I'm still excited and learning and growing.
I love that.
So I think just education is key, and just learning, and just not having that checking our past opinions, or our past thoughts. Even when we talk about on the criminal side, and I've talked a lot about disasters, but on the criminal side, something that has kind of shifted but really, really needs some more growth is our hoarding cases. And I use hoarding in quotes because hoarding is a diagnosable mental illness, right? So those cases have arguably the most neglect occurring and the most pain and suffering to animals, but there's an immense pain and suffering to the humans as well. And the way that our system works right now, the only way to stop that cycle and to get that owner help is to put them through the criminal system, right? They have to be charged, they have to be put through the system, because that's the only way to get them any kind of help. There are a lot of state laws. Amanda was talking about lobbying, and there are I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said a lot. There are some laws out there that mandate for them specifically to have mental health evaluations and counseling, because if you're not taking care of it at the root, hoarding has a over 99% recidivism rate. So it is, again, it's a diagnosable mental illness, and it is it's not talked about enough, and there's not enough resources out there for those situations, and they happen daily in every community and every state. We're getting called constantly. Oftentimes, we just got a call this week. There was a situation in a southern state where an 80-year-old woman passed away, and she was found days later, and she had 100 cats in her house, and nobody knew. And like these situations happen all the time, everywhere. So it's not specific to one region. It's not specific to one area. So the hoarding, I'm quite passionate about the hoarding cases and the mental health aspect to that, because again, there's immense suffering, and technically there are crimes occurring on that property, but the people are suffering on that property, both mentally and physically, because of the environment that they're living in. They often have a lot of medical ailments themselves.
Wow. It's interesting, because I think that, like I said earlier, and I've been saying the whole time we've been raising money for you guys, is that it's very interesting that there's so many layers to what the Humane Society does. There's a deep well of things that you are doing and advocating for, and I really appreciate. I think that we forget often that when neglect happens, sometimes the cause is because the human being is having a mental health crisis, or having are having some kind of mental health disorder. And there's so many layers to, we associate sometimes just bad person does bad things to pet, but that's not always an easy formula. It's never that technically simple. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it's that simple, but most of the time I think it's more complicated than that. So I think it's really important, and it seems like the hoarding cases really hit home for you, and seem like those are they more common? Is that like you see those, you said like every day you see those more frequently? Because it didn't even like register that could be happening really all the time.
We get called about them probably. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at our like official numbers, but
more
like
frequently we think.
More frequently than you would think.
Wow.
It's maybe not quite daily, but usually 3 to 4 times a week we're getting information from somewhere, and that's only what we're receiving, right? So we don't receive information about everywhere. We're not directly connected to any other shelters or any, we don't have any jurisdiction in any specific area. We provide support when we're asked. So these are only cases that we're being made aware of, right? So but yeah, they happen a lot. There's a lot of I call it an onion, like our
layers. There's a lot of layers, definitely.
Layers.
Wow. Amanda, if the original question was what can people do to like help, other than just maybe through donations, if there's other ways that they can help?
Yeah, I have an answer to that, but I also, to build on what Jeff was saying, that I'm fearful that there will be more of these situations that, as Jeff said in quotes, is hoarding, because I think there are a lot of people who start with really good intentions. Especially right now. With COVID, we got a complete backlog in spay-neuter services because of temporary shutdowns, and then it not being an essential service for a long time. And then post-COVID, there has been a decreased capacity spay neuter, but for veterinary care. And that's partly what we're seeing in our shelters across the country being overwhelmed.
Right.
That coupled with that adoptions have drastically slowed down. And so animals are staying in shelters longer.
Oh,
But real cause and effect. And so if someone sees a loose dog in their neighborhood and opens their heart and opens their home to that dog, but they have an unaltered male and female, and there's no spay neuter, in their community, or maybe the only appointment they can find, it's $800, which is now almost the average for a spay neuter.
yeah. Geez.
It can very easily get out of control. And so I think having that compassion for people is extremely important. So that kind of leads into my answer.
Right.
That it may sound trivial and like it's not contributing a lot, but just withholding judgment, situations. And I think especially on social media can just be really brutal, and sort of making assessments and analysis of people and situations without full information, and things can kind of, like feed on itself.
Yeah.
And so, in every way in your life that you may encounter stories and sort of information that's being shared about other people, to sort of have that pause and put yourself in the position of others, and just say, maybe this is just a snapshot and it's not really all of the details. And then if you have time, volunteer in your local community. While we're a national organization, a lot of our work is to support the local organizations. And so we want people to go to their local shelter and volunteer. Shelters are desperate right now. If you have a pet food bank in your community, which there are many, many more of those now than there used to be,
Yay.
they are always looking for people that can come help sort and, sort of staff giveaways. If you see a bin when you're leaving the pet store that says, give an extra bag or an extra can here, and it goes to a family in need, put something in there, even if it's not much. Like, there really isn't anything too small that you can give of yourself and of your time and of your spirit. Like, it really builds up. And
I think it's so beautiful that it seems like the common thread I'm hearing is to have empathy, to have empathy. I think it's also just a good note for humans in general to hold judgment, get all the information, and give yourself a pause before a knee-jerk bandwagon type reaction to things. I think that a lot of things about social media, which is great for advocating and spreading awareness, can also be that you see something and you get a flash reaction and then you just run with that. So I think it's really powerful that it seems like the common thread is give it a second, pause, you don't know the whole story necessarily, and really try to have an open mind about things. And I think that's really, really important. And just for life, and especially for what both of you do, I think it's really important. And I guess a common question I'm seeing in the poop coven is a little bit, and this could be a little bit like personal, so you don't have to answer if you don't, but the thing I keep seeing is, what does this work mean to you? How, because for us, we keep talking about, we see one dog shivering and all of us in here start weeping uncontrollably. Like, I can't even imagine, I am sure that the triumphs, I hope, outweigh those moments, but what does this mean for you? How do you do such important work where it can take a mental toll on both of you as well? So how do you do that? And if you do not want to answer, that's totally valid and fine.
I don't mind answering, Jess. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Did you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm a big mental health advocate, and sadly, we in the animal welfare field have a high rate of mental health and suicide specifically. So it is something that we talk about a lot here within our team, within our organization. Our organization is really supportive of us having some type of work-life balance, right? And it is our work is demanding, physically, mentally, emotionally. It is all demanding, and if you don't have, every person needs some kind of outlet, right? Some way to deal with that, or or you don't last for, 16,
Right.
plus years
Yeah.
in this field. So, for me, because we, and Amanda said it earlier, is all of us hear a lot. Oh, I couldn't do what you do. I couldn't do what you do. Or
Yeah.
people have a misconception of, oh, I want to do what you do because I want to snuggle puppies all day. And it's like, well, let me tell you the last time I actually snuggled a puppy. So it's not glamorous,
Yeah.
but it's incredible. And I think, being in this field for so long, and I was thinking about your question you asked earlier, and like what has changed in this
Yeah.
field. And sometimes it's hard. You get caught up in the day to day, and you don't see the change in the day to day. But if you look back and see what truly has changed over the last decade plus, then it's inspiring. And I feel like when we honestly, it's the people that helps. Every time I hear I want to work with animals, I don't like people. That's a real trigger for me, because it's the people that make this work great, and it's the people that drive change here, and that's what keeps you coming back. And even if we're working on a really hard cruelty case, that might be one person that did something, or it might be, if it's an animal fighting ring, it might be, multiple people, but the dozens to hundreds of people, literally hundreds sometimes, that come and support the mission. If we're talking about, removing animals from a scene, or we're talking about going out to a disaster, setting up a shelter, bringing volunteers in, connecting with our shelter partners and all of their staff, and then having the adopters come to that, so like it literally has this cascade, this echo effect of there's hundreds and hundreds of people that come together for this one common cause, that whatever happened to get us there is, you can't focus on that part, right? You can't focus on the fact that this one person did this really terrible thing, and that's why we're here for this criminal case, or this, really terrible disaster hit this community. Why does this happen? And, you can't focus on that. Look around you and focus on all of the people that are coming together, either in person or behind a keyboard, to make the situation better.
Wow. It's amazing. It's really, really inspiring. Amanda.
I I will say that there are some days where you just need to sit on your kitchen floor and cry.
Yeah.
Like that happens, and I think over time I've learned that that's okay, and to give myself grace for those bad days, and like for those moments where it just feels overwhelming, or that things are just never going to get better. Like those are real, and just sort of sitting with that is important sometimes, and allowing that for your team. But then having team members and colleagues that you can lean on when you're having those bad days of like, okay, today I'm just not going to be my best self. And somebody else sort of picks it up, and then you're there for that person on a day where maybe they're not showing up, in the best way. And so really having that camaraderie, and building sort of a strong support system makes a huge difference. And then just having gratitude, like it's corny, and I sort of like annoy myself even saying it, but I I feel that I'm in such a position of privilege to be able to do this work, and to get to be of service to others, to be part of something that, all the cliches, that's bigger than yourself,
Yep.
sort of creating, and contributing to, like, not everybody gets that opportunity. And I realize that.
Yeah.
And this work has changed me. Like, it has changed me as a human being. It has changed the trajectory of my life. Like, it changes the way I see the world. And I wouldn't want to be without that. And then you just sort of sometimes have to have those tough conversations with yourself of like, well, what's the alternative? Is it to do nothing? And the answer to that is always no, of course not. So, you do what you have to do to take care of yourself and to take care of each other, and to sort of, keep showing up over and over again, because to not really isn't an option.
gave me chills. I love that because I think when you're a fighter, which you both are, and I think that anyone in any charity space has to be, you understand that, like Brady said, compassion fatigue is no joke. It can definitely happen. It can be when you're working with people who are in very difficult moments of their lives, when you also are seeing the effects of that to animals, it can be, like you said, no joke. You need to take that minute. You need to take that cry on the floor. But then you get up the next day and you just do your best. And if your best that day is 20% and you give 20%, then you gave 100% that day because you gave everything you could. So I think that you both are fighters and you're fighting for this cause, and you've been doing it for, in this space, a very long time, because it is an emotionally charged career. It really is difficult. So I commend you both incredibly. I think the work you do, and what everyone should know, that the work that the Humane Society of the United States is doing is transcendent. You are saving lives. You are showing compassion to people and animals in their deepest time of need. And I think I'm so grateful to both of you for what you do and for sharing your stories with me and the Poop Coven, so we can get an inside scoop of really what all of their donations are going to go towards as well. So I'm really grateful. And if you're okay, we usually end every podcast what we call like the speed dating round, where I ask questions rapid fire. It's sort of fun and it's silly and it sort of like lightens the really beautiful but kind of like emotional thing. So if you're okay with it, I'm going to ask a couple questions rapid fire, and then the podcast is all done. We go.
I was gonna lighten with this. This was gonna be my.
Oh my God! Tell me everything right now. I need to know name.
I want to derail your lightning round.
No, I need this more than the lightning round. What? Please tell me. Is a girl, boy? Like, oh my God.
It is a boy. His name is BB. He can't hear anything we're saying.
Oh my God.
Disturbed him from his nap because he's already gotten his nighttime meds. But I just let Jess's cat steal the show all on her own.
I can't handle. I have a Newfoundland and a Great Dane. They would come on and then like break everything. So the fact that we get a little bit of puppy and kitty loving, oh my God, they are so both. They're so cute. Oh my gosh, I love them both so much. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's just ask questions to them.
Now we're just
let's just ask them what their favorite color is, what their favorite toy is. Okay, so the lightning round is and you guys can answer at the same time, just first thing that comes to your head. Favorite color?
orange.
Purple.
Ooh, oh my God, those are my two favorite colors. That's crazy. It's like the theme of the Poop Coven. Their colors is orange and purple. Lucky number if you have one.
Number 10.
10. Do you have one?
I don't think I have one.
Okay, that's totally valid. Not everyone has one. Nothing resonates.
No.
Okay. Favorite, if you have one, TV show.
Favorite
Big Brother.
No, I love that. That's actually amazing.
I am obsessed with everything Bravo.
With everything what?
Bravo.
Okay, we have a lot of Bravo fans in here. I think both of those answers are going to be winners for the Poop Coven. Do you have a favorite movie?
I can watch Love Actually on repeat.
Okay, love that.
Anything Marvel, bonus points if Wolverine is in it.
Okay, all right. Two, I feel like different answers, but they sort of somehow make sense.
We are very apart.
But I feel like you could go from back and forth to those, and like it has a good energy to it. Favorite food?
Anything Italian.
Oh.
All the carbs.
Yes, please, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mine is Tex-Mex. I grew up in East Texas, and you just cannot be Tex-Mex. Other places, and people try to replicate. It's not the same.
That's all I've heard about Texas, by the way, is that like I have to go just to get the barbecue at least, because the barbecue is no joke. So yes. Okay. And do you, either of you, have a motto that you live by, a saying, a feeling, or something that you feel like gets you through the day?
I have one that I say to myself all the time, and it's become the mantra of our team.
Ooh, I love that.
We're of it when we have to. And it is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's amazing. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. That's amazing. Incredible. And really helpful, I think, for people who have a tendency to only strive for that perfectionism and not just settle. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, Jessica.
I have a couple.
Okay.
But I think my favorite is just when the caterpillar thought her world was over, she became a butterfly.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful too. Oh, I love all your answers. This is amazing. That's fantastic. And I would expect nothing less from two very inspiring women to have very inspiring life mantras. So I think that's incredible. And I want to thank you both from me and from the Poop Coven for sharing your energy and your time and your stories with us. I think this is why we do charity events in here. I think that there is no better thing you can do with your life than try to make even a tiny ripple can make a huge wave. So I am so grateful to both of you, and please snuggle both of your babies for us. Thank you so much for joining us, and this was the Humane Society of the United States. I am Poop Witch X, and that was that. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Poop Coven.
Bye.
I'll edit that later. I forgot to do the screen somehow became tiny up there. I'll have to, how did that happen where it's like tiny up? It's okay. Oh my God, at least I ended and I didn't leave them in that hanging thing. Okay, we'll fix that in post. Oh my gosh.